Current and former FBI officials tell NBC News they're shocked and dismayed over President Trump's choice for the Bureau's deputy director. Trump has selected right-wing podcaster and former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino to serve as second in command at the FBI. On his podcast, Bongino thanked Trump for the appointment and said he was ready to put partisanship aside, despite him once calling the agency irredeemably corrupt. He followed his appreciation message yesterday with claims the Justice Department had been weaponized. Some current FBI employees who spoke to NBC News on the condition of anonymity say they feared Bongino's appointment spelled the end of an independent FBI and put the Bureau's investigative and intelligence capabilities in the hands of political actors with radical agendas. In the Bureau's 117-year history, the deputy director has always been a career FBI agent, but neither FBI Director Kash Patel nor Bongino have ever worked at the agency. Joining us now, NBC News Justice reporter Ryan Riley. Ryan, there's really no one else I wanted to talk to this morning. I was reading your reporting yesterday where one senior FBI official said that this was just beyond problematic, voicing concerns that there are now conspiracy theorists and election deniers in the highest positions of the FBI. Talk about the other reactions that you've been getting and how we got to this point.
Yeah, a lot of eye rolls, and this is a really important role within the FBI. In fact, some people think it's more important really than the director, because the FBI deputy director is really the one who is running everything, making everything stays on schedule, really just running the Bureau fundamentally, while the director might deal with some higher level stuff and, interactions with Congress, that sort of thing. This is someone who's going to be more of the sort of day-to-day person grinding it out at the Bureau, and that does not seem to be Dan Bongino's background here. And I think what has disturbed a lot of FBI agents is it seems like, the conspiracy theories are really the reason that these individuals got the job, and their willingness to engage with really kind of ridiculous conspiracy theories about, January 6th and so on, right? These are individuals who engage with those things publicly. And when you look at Donald Trump's history about, his previous FBI director choice, right? That's someone who was not willing to sort of engage in those conspiracy theories, who was willing to hold the line of truth. And the question is whether or not these individuals who are now going to be taking over, the Bureau, which is this incredibly powerful tool within the federal government, has, the power to do things that other institutions within government do not, if they're going to be able to hold that line of truth. And there's a lot of concern within the FBI that they won't, and will sort of be able to do Donald Trump's bidding in whatever way he wants.
Somewhat founded in their concerns, right? When you look at the way that these two men have spoken in the past about this very agency. But then there's also the piece, the FBI Agents Association said in a memo that Kash Patel had privately committed to installing an agent as his second in command. So what happened here, and how did it end up being Bongino?
Yeah, I think that's something we're still trying to figure out. If you, of course, message me on Signal if we can figure this out, right? Anyone who's out there watching, because we're trying to figure out exactly what the timeline was here, because that message was what we heard from Kash Patel. If you look back, I think, to the Matt Gaetz nomination, that might offer some sort of a roadmap there, where there was this last minute choice that Donald Trump made because somebody got in his ear, right? And I think because of Donald Trump's history with the FBI, it's been a decade of him sort of attacking the Bureau, undermining the Bureau. It's done a tremendous swing in Republican belief in the FBI or trust in the FBI. If you just look at the stats, where it's done this total reversal, where previously you would have Democrats more skeptical, but Republicans were very supportive of the FBI a decade ago, and that just completely plunged a lot because of a lot of the propaganda that we've seen come out about the Bureau over this past decade. So I mean, there's just a ton of concern. I can't express how much of an issue this is within the Bureau, and it's come at a time within, in recent weeks since Donald Trump took office, it's been just this tremendous turnover within the FBI. You've had all the leadership gone. There's just so much change going on within the Bureau right now. There's just a lot of worries about what this institution is going to look like going forward.
Well, mixed signals and no backing down from Dan Bongino, the right-wing podcaster picked to serve as the new deputy director of the FBI. The former Secret Service agent has referred to the FBI as irredeemably corrupt. But while he suggested he's prepared to relinquish that MAGA warrior role, he also repeated a frequent and baseless charge that the DOJ has been weaponized.
I get it if you were a political opponent of mine that has been involved with proudly celebrating a weaponized justice system, how you don't understand how a guy like me who discusses partisan content in an opinion show can go and do a unquestionably nonpartisan job.
An NBC News review found that since 2017, Bongino's podcast has mentioned the FBI or deep state more than 21,000 times. Joining me now, NBC News Justice and Intel correspondent Ken Delanian, along with Christopher O'Leary, former senior official at the FBI. Ken, I know you've been reporting on reaction inside the FBI over the choice of Bongino, including those who have told you that in many ways they think the deputy role is even more important than the director role. So talk about the kinds of concerns they're expressing to you.
Yeah, especially when you have a director like Kash Patel, who has no experience in the FBI, who is himself a partisan warrior with a history of criticizing the FBI. Agents were hoping that they would bring in a career FBI agent, as been true for the 117-year history of the Bureau, to be in the deputy role. The deputy actually runs operations. But instead, they brought in another partisan MAGA warrior. And not only that, somebody who has made baseless charges. I mean, just a few months ago, Chris, Dan Bongino accused the FBI of covering up the fact that he said that they knew who the suspect was who placed the pipe bombs outside the RNC and DNC the day before January 6th, after the FBI issued a public call for information saying they had no suspects. Dan Bongino said it's an inside job, it's a cover-up. That's just extraordinary. There's no evidence for that. He's accusing the FBI of being corrupt there, and now he's going to be the deputy director leading this organization. That's not a matter of opinion. That was a false charge that he made without evidence, and that's gotten a lot of people very concerned, Chris.
Chris, you spend a lot of time inside the building at the FBI. You know a lot of folks who still work there. Does it matter that the number one and number two don't have any FBI experience?
Well, it does, and the combination of the two is really the most concerning part. So the deputy is supposed to have all of this operational experience at every level of the FBI across multiple types of threats, from counterterrorism, counterintelligence to violent crime. The director rises through the ranks and develops a network and leadership capability and understanding of the network and the interagency as they rise through the ranks. He's done none of that. It's great that he had a short career in the NYPD, working crime on the street level, but then he did protection for the Secret Service for a few more years. He's never done any investigations, nothing in national security, nothing working with the interagency. And the more problematic thing, the lack of experience coupled with his lack of suitability, his character flaws. I mean, there is no way that you're going to put 21,000 allegations back in the box against the FBI. So he's being rewarded with taking the helm at the FBI as the deputy after undermining the trust and confidence in its employees and the organization, the institution as a whole, for the last few years.
You know, there's one thing to talk about experience, but with that experience comes respect. Maybe even if you don't like the guy himself, right? If it's somebody who's been inside, who understands the working of whether it's the FBI or any other complex agency. But my limited experience around the FBI, these are not easy jobs. These are not places where you go, you clock in, and you leave, particularly for the front-facing people who are doing the investigations, the lawyers you and I were talking about in the break. How do you lead an agency? How do you run an agency without the respect of the people who are in it? And is it possible to win their respect, do you think, in this case?
So I don't think it's possible for him to win the respect of your average FBI agent or intelligence professional. Rob Cassane or Brian Driscoll, if they would have been asked to stay aboard as the deputy director, they would have enjoyed that. They have incredible reputations based on their work, based on operations. While Dan Bongino was running a podcast out of his basement, Rob Cassane was in East Africa with me. Brian Driscoll was in Syria with me hunting down ISIS. They built up a resume based on work and partnerships. They're trusted teammates. And people know that they would go to bat for them, looking out for their welfare. They already demonstrated that. Nobody has any trust and confidence in Dan Bongino to do that. He clearly lacks the integrity to do that. He's demonstrated that. And he really doesn't believe in the FBI and its mission. My concern is they're looking to dismantle it.
So, Ken, you and your colleagues have been digging into Dan Bongino's years-long history of pushing conspiracy theories, criticism of the FBI. To Chris's point, that is a question a lot of people have. Is Dan Bongino there to run an agency or to dismantle it. What do his words over the past many years tell us about that?
Well, Chris, he has actually suggested, particularly after the Mar-a-Lago raid, he said repeatedly that the FBI should be disbanded. Irredeemably corrupt was the phrase that you cited. He said it's beyond repair, essentially. Now, he's not saying that right now, and, we'll have to see how it goes, but it's clearly they have two people now in charge of the FBI at the senior-most positions who have spent years denouncing the FBI and painting the specter of a deep state, a cabal within the FBI, without any evidence of that. And so now they're confronted. Now they're going to be inside. They're going to be running the place. Dan Bongino, the first time he's in public with reporters, he's going to be asked, well, can you tell us the name of the pipe bomber? You said that the FBI was covering that up, right? So he's either going to have to come clean and explain to his followers that the conspiracy theories he was trafficking in are false, or he's going to have to. There's going to be a total contradiction.
So, folks, as you can see there, police, and that's like people. You have to understand, whether we're talking about prosecutors or we're talking about FBI people, they are cops, right? We often assume cops are just the local guys on the beat. But your FBI agents, your federal prosecutors, Kamala Harris called herself the top cop of California. Letitia James is the top cop in New York. And what cops are saying is that Trump's people are creating a context where they cannot be respected, both by their actions and lack of qualifications. And what's interesting here is that with some Trump picks, it's like, could this person hypothetically, in some distant future, win the respect and admiration of the people that work under them? And some experts have said, well, I'm pretty friggin' skeptical, but I suppose it's possible. Here you have experts saying, coppers saying, there's no way Bongino can win this. There's no way. There is no way. Think how complicated human history is to say something is impossible. Impossible. 0%. What Trump is doing is making enemies of everybody. The only silver lining to all of this is it's so ham-fisted. Like he wants to do these attacks on democracy, but who are the loyal soldiers to get it done? People were like, oh, Trump's gonna get the cops to do it or the military to do it, but he's pissing everybody off in those institutions too. Donald Trump is creating a context where everyone who hates him will be united, despite the fact that they often hate each other.